Hello all! Today it's just the Trevor half of Trevor and Susu, as Susu is very busy at work, so she hasn't been able to make it, but hopefully she'll be rejoining us soon. A little bit about me. I love languages. I speak several languages. I've learned a lot of languages, and I even teach a language as my job, so I think I'm a bit of a language expert.
真聪明.
So I came across this video from Watchdata, and today I'm going to react to it. It's entitled Easiest Languages to Learn, and I figured I would see if they know what they're talking about. Alright, let's get stuck right into it. So the basis for this is how long it takes you to learn a language if you speak only English. Let's see. Japanese, 2,500 hours. That sounds about accurate because it has more difficult grammar than something like Mandarin, but it also uses kanji and has two different alphabets. I know they use less kanji than in Mandarin, but still the amount of kanji does make it a little bit more difficult than something like Korean. Mandarin, I feel like that's pretty accurate. I teach Mandarin as my job. I definitely think that Mandarin does take a long time to learn, but it's actually more straightforward than people would expect. Because while yes, you have to learn all of these characters aren't just random pictures for everything. It's quite systematic. So I'd say once you know a good couple hundred characters, you actually can learn the rest of the characters that you need to know much easier. The only problem is it's not at all related to English, and I think that's what we're going to see at the back of the list. So at the hardest languages to learn, I believe that we're going to see a lot of languages that are really unrelated to English and might have unique writing systems or grammar systems, whereas towards the front of the list we're probably going to have languages closer related to English, like Romance languages and Germanic languages. Let's give it a look. Arabic, yep. Arabic, that's the different language system that I was talking about with the different writing and everything. Thai as well, different. Okay, Finnish does use the Latin alphabet, but it is really difficult grammatically, so I think that's really what they're going for. Hungarian is similar, I would say, because they are related to Finnish. They even say it here. Hindi, again, different writing system, not at all related to English. Tagalog, yep. Tagalog as well is it's an Asian language. You're not going to have that very high up. After Tagalog, it looks like we're getting to some languages that are a little bit closer related, like we'll see some Near Eastern languages like Hebrew, Turkish. Persian isn't really Near Eastern, but at least it's closer to Europe. It's interesting that it's that high up. I don't actually know that much about Persian. Polish, Russian, Ukrainian, yep, Slavic languages all together, because those are a little bit more difficult. Greek, I think I would include in there. Icelandic, interesting. I wasn't expecting to see a Germanic language this high up on the list, but it does make a lot of sense, because Icelandic is so far away from the rest of the Germanic languages. I have heard that the grammar is a lot more tricky than a lot of Scandinavian languages, and it does have some sounds that don't really exist in other Scandinavian languages, which is kind of interesting. Now, Welsh. Okay, I've heard Welsh is quite difficult. I just remember the clip of the guy reading the town name, and that looked insane. Scottish Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. I wonder how they differentiate between the two Gaelics in terms of time, because that's only 20 hours different. I also wonder if Scottish people and Irish people can understand each other and their different versions of Gaelic. If you speak either of those, let me know. Can you understand other people's Gaelic? Is it similar? Alrighty. Swahili. I have an African language finally. It says that words are written exactly as you want to pronounce them, which makes it a lot easier. I would say it's probably still going to be very difficult because it's not at all related to English. Next we have Javanese, Malaysian, Indonesian. I've heard that the grammar in these languages is a little bit more straightforward, as well as the spelling being exactly as it sounds, which is huge if you're learning it. Creole, Patois. I forget what the difference between a Creole and a Patois is. I know they're similar, but they're different. Okay, now we're getting into the languages that I would say are pretty easy to learn. We have German. So I've learned some German, and I would definitely agree with this. I don't think it's a very difficult language to learn from English, especially because as far as Germanic languages go, it is closer related to English than, for example, Swedish or Danish or Norwegian. I've heard that Dutch is actually closer related to English, so I wonder if Dutch will be higher up on the list. Then you have Latin and French. Latin has a lot of difficult grammar, but because we brought in a lot of Latin words from French, it makes sense that they would be this high up. And then we have French, which makes sense. French is pretty easy to learn. I feel like it's very different to get used to French in terms of speaking and listening, but if you're reading or writing it, it feels pretty easy. All right, and then we have Old English, yep. Again, because that's kind of like learning a Germanic language that just happens to be more closely related to English. Then we have Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese. Interesting. I guess Brazilian is slower and with more open vowels. And we have Romanian, Italian, Galician. I've heard that Romanian has a lot of Slavic influences and it makes it more difficult. It's interesting that these Romance languages are higher up on the list than French, because I feel like French gave all of these words to English, so it stands to reason that French should be easier than these languages, but they say these are more difficult. Throwing in more classical languages like Middle English. So Middle English, as you know, is much more similar to modern English than Old English, as it stands to reason. They have Dutch, like I said, that makes sense. Afrikaans, because I feel like Afrikaans is very similar to Dutch. Frisian, I've heard that Frisian is the closest Germanic language to English, but they seem to disagree here. Right, we've got Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian. Danish has some really interesting pronunciation. I've heard that people who speak Danish sound like they have potatoes in their mouth, which is not something I can verify. I don't speak Danish. I only speak a little bit of Norwegian. I also find it interesting that Norwegian is above the Romance languages. I feel like the Romance languages are more closely related to English in terms of vocabulary. And I feel like that's a huge determining factor in if you can speak a language or not, is do you know words in this language? Even if your grammar's kind of bad, you can make yourself understood with some basic vocabulary. Now this, I don't know about. Let's talk a little bit about Esperanto. So the thought behind Esperanto is all well and good if we did not have a language that already is the world's second language, English. So if you want to be understood by as many people as possible, don't learn Esperanto, learn English. If you want to learn a language for brain training, don't learn Esperanto, learn any other language. If you want to learn Esperanto because you want to learn Esperanto, don't learn Esperanto. Learn Italian if you want to learn Esperanto, or learn Polish. The other problem with Esperanto is it's supposed to be the world's second language, but if someone who's Chinese or Japanese is learning Esperanto, that's going to be just as difficult as learning an actually useful language like Italian, French, or English. So I don't agree with having Esperanto on this list at all, in fact. It's a conlang, so I feel like it should be excluded. Early modern English, okay. I feel like that's basically just English. Scots. I would say that Scots is a little bit more difficult than early modern English. I feel like early modern English just uses some words that we don't use anymore in modern English. But in Scots, part of the difficulty is because it's written and the way it's spoken. Even reading it, you can kind of get what they're saying, but it's still a little bit more different, I would say, than early modern English. All right, leet speak, they're just throwing out stuff here. Pig Latin. Okay, they're just throwing out random languages at the end, like Esperanto, leet speak, Pig Latin. I'd say those are all pretty similar. I don't know, what do you think? Should we have included these on the list? Some people naturally pick up language faster than others. Are you a linguist? I mean, I am. I do like learning languages. I think that I pick up languages pretty quickly, but I would disagree with this a little bit. I feel like some people do naturally pick up languages a little bit faster, but I think the bigger factor is, are you putting in the time and are you motivated to learn? Because if you're motivated to learn, that means you're going to be putting in more time consistently, and the more consistent time you put into a language, the more language you can learn. Because most people speak at least one language very well, and most people speak that language starting at about the same time. So I would say I kind of disagree with this in some ways, but I agree in others. I feel like there are some people who really enjoy learning languages, and that makes them learn more languages. And I feel like there are some people who just do not like the process of learning language, be it because of the education they received before being subpar, their experience with language not being good, or if they just feel like it's something that's difficult to them. That said, I'm sure if they found the motivation and the resources and the methods, they could definitely learn a language just as easily as anyone else. So don't be discouraged, go out there and learn your language today. And let me know, how many languages do you speak? Do you speak any of the languages on the list? Do you agree with their listing? Do you disagree? I feel like I disagree with a couple of things, namely the inclusion of a few languages at the end there. But also I feel like French should be higher up on the list. I feel like French is a little bit easier than they're giving it credit for here. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out my Learning Spanish in 30 Days series on YouTube Shorts. And we'll be having a long form video talking about that shortly, hopefully. All right. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.